Hello again and welcome to another Mordian Glory Warhammer 40k video. In today's episode, I come to you with a heavy heart, with my head hanging low. For I have shamed us, sirs, disgraced us, sirs. I was wrong. You see, recently I did a unit review covering the Cyclops demolition vehicle. And in that video, I discussed whether this humble unit was a big bang or wet fart. And I said that it wasn't really that good. It wasn't really worth it. But I could not have been more incorrect. I could not have been further from the truth. I have now seen through the lies of the Jedi, and I understand that the Cyclops is our true Lord and Savior. You see, Cyclops isn't a wet fart. It's actually a genuinely S-tier unit. And with that bold statement made, let's not mess around any further. Let's dive right into today's episode. Alright, so what has caused me to so drastically change my mind on the Cyclops? If you look at its damage output, I still maintain the fact that the unit is almost useless. Okay, it's 25 points to maybe do some mortal wounds. It's really just not a big deal. But, and it's a big but, and I cannot lie, looking at this unit through the lens of what damage it can do is just totally wrong. It's just the wrong way of even starting to think about this thing. Because the Cyclops demolition vehicle isn't there to do damage. Ironically, it's a demolition vehicle, but what it's going to demolish is not your enemy's units, but their hopes and dreams. Because this is one of the best scoring units that we have in our entire army. Right about now, I bet some of you have got at least one eyebrow raised skeptically, but bear with me, because the concept about the Cyclops, the reason why it's so good now, is actually really straightforward. It's a very cheap unit that can still score objectives. Just because it's got an OC value of 0, sure, that stops it from doing primary, but that doesn't stop it from scoring secondary points. You don't need to have an objective control value to score secondaries. It's kind of similar to Tyranid spore mines, right? Tyranids pay for a biovore, they can launch a spore mine, and then that spore mine, even though it's just this one little thing just floating around, it can still do things like engage and behind enemy lines. Well, the Cyclops demolition vehicle falls very much into the same category. You're paying a tiny amount of points, 25 points is all it is. And you can put these things into strategic reserve, and you can just wait until turn 2, turn 3 when you draw one of those cards that means you need to be deploying a teleporter homer. Take all the explosives out of your Cyclopses. Stuff teleporter homers inside them instead. And if you draw that card turn 2 or you draw that card turn 3, then you can just bring your Cyclops in from strategic reserve and you can deploy that teleporter homer. And for 25 points, you can score 5 victory points. That is insanely good. And the fact that you can take two of these Cyclopses, and they only cost you 50 points, is incredible. Now, I had a little bit of a slip of the tongue there before I said Scions, because I was actually thinking about Scions next, because when you actually start comparing the Cyclops to other scoring units, you realize how cost effective they are. How many people listen to this video right now as part of the cause will take a couple of Scion units and shove them into your list? And you think to yourself, I'll bring these 2 Scion units, they're going to deep strike down, and they're going to get me the points that I need, right? You don't care if they live or die, they're literally just deep striking down to get the points. Well, you're spending 110 points to do that. But if you take 2 Cyclopses, it's costing you 50 points. You can save 60 points and achieve exactly the same thing as you were doing before. And you might argue that the Cyclopses can't deep strike, so that is an advantage that the Scions have. But guess what? The Scions have a bigger footprint. So deep strike is all well and good, but it's easier for your opponent to screen out that 5-man unit of Scions than it is for them to try and screen out this tiny Cyclops demolition vehicle, because these things are about the size, they're probably just over the size like a 32mm base. They're not very big at all. And you just bring them in Shitty Reserve, and then you can just put them in whichever table quarters you want when you come in from the side. As long as you're staying outside your opponent's deployment zone turn 2. They're just as maneuverable. I've used Cyclopses in dozens of games, competitive games at this point, and I've never had an issue with them not being able to go where I need them to go. They've completely replaced Scions in my army as the go-to cheap deep striking or reserving point scorer, because I can literally take the same potential, save 60 points. That 60 points is a lot in the Guard. That 60 points is an extra infantry squad. That 60 points is maybe the difference between taking a couple of filler units, like, oh, I don't quite have enough armor, so I'll take a Lehman Russ Eradicator to bulk out the forces. Oh, no, now you can take it as a Demolisher if you want to, and still have 20 points left over. 60 points is an extra Death Corps Marshal. 60 points is Ursula Creed, and you'd have change. So it's a really big deal being able to save that amount of points, because in the Guard, you can get a lot of bang for your buck. But wait, there's more. You see, Scions are not the only unit that are being made redundant by the Cyclops. There is another. A very, very popular squad on the tournament scene, which many top tier players will tell you is an auto-include in a competitive Guard list. You know what? I think Cyclops have got them beat, and I think they got them beat for half the cost. I'm talking about Gaunt's Ghosts. Sure as sure, there's going to be a lot of people that disagree with this, but let me tell you something. All right. Gaunt's Ghosts are a good unit, but I believe they're overcosted for what you're getting from them. They're one squad, and they have lone operative, and they can teleport around the map, and that looks amazing on paper. But they're just one squad, so they could only be in one place at a time. If you draw behind enemy lines and you've got Gaunt's Ghosts, you might only get 3 points for it. If you've got 2 Cyclopses, you'll get 5 points for it. If you get engaged north fronts, you might only get 3 points for it. If you've got your 2 Cyclopses, you pop 1 on each corner, you will get 5 points for it. And you might say, yes, well, Gaunt's Ghosts are a lot more durable, and that's true. There's a lot of wounds there and everything, and lone operative certainly helps. But they're also a bigger unit, a bit like Scions. It can be difficult to fit them into a space. All well and good being able to teleport around the map, but what if you just can't squeeze into the gap? Cyclopses are really easy to squeeze into all sorts of places, and because of this, they are indirectly very, very durable. Because you can just pop them behind a little bit of landslide blocking terrain, and come on, we're playing competitive 10th edition here. There's always a bit of landslide blocking terrain you can hide behind. On top of this, they're such a tiny model that I'm going to make it another, full of bold statements today. I'm going to make another point here. But I've used Cyclopses in dozens of competitive games now, and in nearly every single one, my opponents have just completely forgotten about them. Sometimes I've been forced to bring them in turn 3, just because the cards that I want for them haven't come up yet, those behind enemy lines and stuff, those teleport homers. And I just pop them in the back. I go 1 in that back corner, 1 in that back corner, 1 behind that little bit of terrain, 1 behind that little bit of terrain. I just left them there. And my opponents has completely forgotten about them. I literally had one game where my opponent was tidying his dice. He was like, "Oh, we've got a casualty here for you, mate." I went, no, that's not dead. That's in that little corner there. It's just waiting for behind enemy lines to pop up. And he was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot you brought those in turn 2." And I was like, "Yeah, just chilling." Just chilling. Because they're such a low threat, because they don't do any damage. Your opponent's always going to have other things he's going to want to shoot first. He's going to be like, "Oh, well, I could shoot that Cyclops, but I've got that 20-man infantry squad bearing down that objective. I really need to clear those out. Or I could shoot that Cyclops, but there is a Chimera there, or there's a Lehman Russ, and my attacks really go that way." And so Cyclopses are very durable in the fact that they're very low threat, and they're very small models. People just forget about them. You put them down, you're not trying to gotcha your opponent. You put them down, you make it very clear where you're putting them. If your opponent ever asks if you've got any units, that it should be wherever you got the Cyclops in that building. You play it fair, but there's such a low threat that most time your opponent will just ignore them. This makes them really, really good because I've literally had so many games where I've had a Cyclops turn 5 just chilling in a corner and I've just drawn something crazy, like deploy teleport ahead of like, boom, 5 points. They're like, how are you getting 5 points? But it's the Cyclops in there. And they're like, oh, I forgot about that guy. Oh, he's right there. Ah, it's literally right under your opponent's nose. So Gaunt's Ghosts are very good, but they suffer from the same size issue that Scions do, and they can only be in one place. And if your opponent wants to kill them, they will go down, and they are a big, obvious unit, so your opponent will go after them. Where Cyclops is, they can be in multiple places at once, they cost less, and just by being so diddy, most people will forget about them or just ignore them, and that allows them to score continuously throughout the game. Now, before we wrap up today's video, I want to make one more quick point. I fully appreciate that the Cyclops is a Forge World unit. Some people don't like using Forge World, and some people don't want to buy Forge World because, well, GW has a habit of removing those products. Don't worry. Everything I've said about Cyclops, you can emulate with a Commissar. Commissars are 30 points. They don't need to join any units, and you can put them in strategic reserves. So if you want to do the same thing, but with Commissars and kind of future-proof yourself against any GW production shenanigans, shall we say, and the Commissar is definitely the guy to watch. But with all of that said, it is now sadly time to bring this video to a close. But you know what? Everything we've talked about today is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Are you Team Cyclops, or do you prefer your Scions and your Gaunt's Ghosts? If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to smash that like button and also subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian Glory Hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing, truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members, so thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, and they have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a big shout out to Bon Vert, Mad Larkin, Marcus Roberts, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Varney. Thank you guys so much. Your incredible generosity is a massive part of how I'm able to do Mordian Glory full time, and it is a big driving force behind the channel. But I hope you all enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, and of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.